Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of the Daily Aztec Debrief. I'm your host, Rami Alarian.
And I'm your co-host, Jalen Vega.
And on this podcast, we've brushed a lot of very tame topics so far. We've never been able to, enjoy our true passion for witchcraft and the occult like we've wanted to. But today we'll be flipping through one of SDSU's oldest texts, originally published in 1486. I hardly know how to pronounce it, so maybe our guest can do it for me.
Malleus Maleficarum.
God, that sounds awesome. Or the Hammer of Witches. Everyone welcome Anna Culbertson. Hello.
Yay.
Hi, thanks
How's
so much
it
for
going?
having me.
Good. The head of Special Collections and University Archives. How are you feeling?
Happy to be here.
This is good. You specialize in rare books and book history and are currently investigating sources of American anti-communism, right?
That is correct.
How exciting. One of our most interesting guests so far.
Yes.
So feel free to tell me a little bit about yourself, and your work with the Collections Office.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm a librarian specializing in rare books and special collections. I teach a lot of classes at SDSU about book history. I'm currently co-teaching a class with Dr. Jessica Pressman about book history, where the students are coming in for labs every week for the entire semester. Book history is kind of my thing, but yes, as you mentioned, I have my, pet projects, and right now I'm investigating American propaganda, particularly anti-communist propaganda, because I started to get curious about where the sort of demonization of the left was born.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just really interested in 20th century material culture, especially propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
And I love old books as well. I love old books, and I cannot lie.
How does one kind of fall into the interest of, researching rare books and these kind of really special texts?
Well, when I was doing my undergraduate and graduate studies, I mastered in French, or I majored in French in my undergrad, and then I got a master's in French. But I had to consult illuminated manuscripts of Dante's Inferno.
Wow.
And that was kind of a game changer for me, because I realized I was so much more interested in the format as opposed to the content. Dante's Divine Comedy is incredible, obviously, but I was just like, whoa, this is what books used to look like. And then there was this movie called The Ninth Gate with Johnny Depp that was I think it was late 90s, early 2000s, and he was a rare books kind of guy, and it was a sort of a film noir mystery thing. And I was like, this is what I want to do when I grow up. So believe it or not, when you do this work, you're getting a master's in library and information science. So after I did my master's in French, I went back and did that, and I studied in New York. So I got to study at all of the coolest special collections, basically no shade to the West Coast, but there are a lot of great institutions in New York. And that was where my career was born.
That's wonderful.
So cool. I'm geeking out right now. I love history.
I know this is definitely an interest of ours. And I thought it's just something. When Jalen suggested that we even had this sort of book, it's not something that I think me or any students even know, and probably that goes with so many texts on this campus. And you could probably attest to this yourself, is that we just have so many interesting books.
We do, and actually, this book was a fairly recent purchase, because
Really?
we're a modestly funded public state institution, and our special collections book buying budget is definitely not keeping up with the price of rare books these days. So, we do our best to acquire things that are on the more affordable side by focusing on what the current curricular needs are. But there is and was a witchcraft class being taught in the history program by Dr. Beth Pollard, and we've been accumulating stuff about witchcraft because of that.
Wow.
And there was I believe this year, I think it was 2017, there was a one-time chunk of collection money that was made available to the library. So we were able to buy this book, which was in the, 5 figures. And that's the most expensive book we've been able to purchase, definitely since I've worked here. So it was really exciting for it to not only be, about witchcraft, but also just be like such an important piece of history and be a piece of early printing history because it was printed in the first 50 years that books were printed before Gutenberg's press was innovated in Europe. So a lot of significant things about this book.
Most definitely. I mean, what is the rarity of it? And I'm also kind of interested, like, what kind of translation and edition is it?
So ours is the 4th edition, which was printed in Nuremberg in 1494, and it's in Latin, maybe unsurprisingly. So books that were printed before 1501 are kind of the rarest of the rare in terms of rare books, and of course we have a vault where we keep those things. I think we have 15 books printed before 1501 at this point. If that gives you a sense of how rare they are.
Definitely.
And they get a special designation in the rare books world. We call them incunabula, which is a Latin word for cradle. And this refers to the fact that they were printed kind of during printing's infancy. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of lost my train of thought.
It's rare.
So how is it like protected, like without giving away like how it's protected?
Well,
So there's lasers.
I hope there's no robber coming in.
Yeah.
well, we do have a vault, and it's a secure vault, so you have to tap to get in, and it has an alarm on it, and it's in a part of the library that's not a public area. So we have all of our special collection storage is in secure areas with alarms, but the vault is kind of like behind a door. It's not a proper vault like you would imagine seeing in a bank with like one of those
That's what I'm envisioning as you're like talking about
doors. Yeah. But
Really protected.
yeah, and it's not a big room because we don't have a ton of books that are kind of like vault material. But yeah, we've got some really special things in there.
Is this something you could request to, like, look at?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would say the majority of the things that we have are just available for you to come in as a researcher and work one-on-one with. And then we have a couple of things that require like a little bit closer supervision. For example, we have a first edition of Copernicus, and that's like by far our most valuable book.
It's going to be another episode.
we just do a deep dive on all the rare books.
Yeah, you know where to find me now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's here for the students. That's why we have it.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
really cool. I mean, tell me a little bit about the contents, because I'm even reading some excerpts in English, I'm confused, and I'm hardly a source that could tell its real cultural significance.
Oh man, so this book has a pretty dark history, and I will just say, ironically, Gutenberg's press revolutionized the transmission of knowledge across Europe, but it also fueled the witch hunting craze.
Really?
Yeah, so it was kind of like a revolution for good and for tragedy, really.
Because it could easily just send out not only information, but also, I guess, misinformation or disinformation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once this format of printing was enabled, suddenly everyone could make books and they could transmit them however they wanted to. And this was, of course, when there was very little regulation. Books back then did get, blacklisted by the Catholic Church, things like that, and people would get banned. For example, Copernicus book was banned by the Catholic Church for at least 200 years. I think the final year that it was on the Catholic Banned Books Index was in like the late 1700s. But yeah, so books were just being printed left and right, and people were getting their hands on them. And apparently at one point, this was the Malleus Maleficarum, we're back to the witch book, was allegedly the second highest selling book next to the Bible.
That's crazy.
And we have it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So what's it all about?
Okay, so
Getting into the meat and potatoes.
yeah, so this book was written by inquisitors, two men named Heinrich Kramer and Jacob Springer. The latter is kind of a contested author, so I don't really have any juicy tidbits to share with you about him. But it was done on the authority of the Pope, who at the time was Innocent VIII. And he had sent Kramer to hunt witches in Innsbruck, Austria. Now, this guy was a bit of a character. his whole MO for writing the book seems to trace back to a single woman named Helena Scheuberin. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. Apparently, when he arrived in Innsbruck, she spat on him because he already had this reputation of being a witch hunter. And she was going around getting other people to stop attending his sermons. So, of course, she was accused of witchcraft. And allegedly, during her trial, he was so obsessed with weird details about her sexuality that the authorities were starting to get really disturbed by him being involved. And they eventually expelled him from the city entirely,
Thank God.
suspended the trial, and she was acquitted.
You know it's bad when that happens
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah.
Like
That's
that's
actually a
crazy.
very good
Like that's crazy that
Yeah.
that happened.
He must have
You
been.
have to like really amplify what he was doing.
Yes.
Because
Most
for
definitely.
it to happen back then.
Kramer was next level.
Yeah.
And this unsurprisingly inspired him to dig in. So he decided he was going to write this book. And basically, it was a revenge piece against Helena and then ultimately against strong willed independent women everywhere. So what's in the book? You might want to
Yes,
know. That's probably what you're here for, right? So before the Malleus, folks that were accused of witchcraft were given milder punishments, like just a day in the stocks or something. Do you know what the stocks are? They're like these big boarded things where you would hang with your hand and head
Oh my gosh,
Oh.
yes.
in the public square, and it's like
Yes.
it's more humiliating than anything else.
Yeah.
Although I imagine you probably got really tired. But Kramer, with this book, really kind of drove home the need to be more brutal in hunting witches, because I guess the stocks just were not de-incentivizing witchcraft. So the book contains a step-by-step guide for conducting a trial, escalated torture in order to get a confession out of someone. Death was actually considered the most acceptable outcome. So, if you died, it was just like, yeah, they needed to die because that was the only true way to stop them from, committing witchcraft. The accused were usually women, because women are easily corruptible idiots, right? So after you were accused, you were stripped and shaved because they had to search your entire body for a single mark, which would be the devil's mark, as we were chatting about.
Interesting.
It could have been a birthmark or a scar located literally anywhere on your body. Torture included things like sleep deprivation, being forced to sit on a red hot stool, other forms of burning the body, being waterboarded, or especially popular, I actually just learned about this, is being hung strappato style, where your wrists are tied behind your back and then they are suspended up in the air and you're kind of hung from like a really high gallows. So your shoulders are inevitably going to be dislocated, and they would have you hanging up there, and they would sometimes like drop you a distance and then let it
Like
snap.
a pinata?
Yes,
Oh my
a
gosh.
human. You nailed it. Yeah, like a human pinata. So if you survived the trial, you usually sustained permanent damage and pain. And if you didn't cry, you were definitely a witch. So yeah, and I guess the last thing I would say about the content is that the inquisitors would eventually just tell you that if you would admit to being a witch, they would let you off the hook. And so they compelled a lot of false confessions that way because they were totally lying, and then you were convicted of being a witch. So
Wow.
yeah, and that book inspired and was basically a reference source for witch hunts all the way up through the Salem witch trials in Massachusetts.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna ask if that was kind of like their Bible in
Yeah,
a way.
yeah.
It was their
Yeah.
blueprint for conducting kind of just horrific nonsense accusations.
Yeah,
Was
absolutely.
this text? Mm-hmm. And that's the I understand why it's called the Hammer of Witches, because instead of like a more passive approach to what they see as witchcraft, they took a much more active and very violent approach.
Yes.
To what is essentially just making women in line with their values, which is fascinating and too telling.
Yeah, I mean, it was a patriarchal society. I mean, it still is, but then it especially was, and there was no separation of church and state as well. So, the church controlled Europe.
Did it describe at all kind of like any more behavior or characteristics of witches?
Yeah, there's so the first part of it goes into sort of what its charge was, like defending its, this book was written because the Pope wanted us to write in, blah, 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 blah.
Uh-huh.
And then it goes into how to identify a witch. And so that's like kind of the, the behaviors you would see, like a person just like walking outside at night, just anything you can think of,
Like-
because like they were just so excited to like get someone and try out this process on them.
I could talk a little bit on that. Like it would be like if you were too sexual, you were a witch. But if you weren't sexual at all and wasn't sleeping with your husband, you were also a witch. It would be if you were single, you're a witch. But if you were also married to some extent, you were like it was literally every like if you did one thing, also the opposite made you a witch. Like they literally convicted like anyone and everyone. If you were too
spat on
independent,
someone on protest.
yeah, if you were too lively, if you were too enthusiastic, if you were too, like, literally
Yeah.
every single trait you could think of, they could interpret it as some form of witchcraft. It was crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see how people might have perceived that as like a way to like be participating in a divine process. Like, I identified a witch. Like,
Oh,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, it's buying me merit to get into heaven.
Yeah.
I'm taking
Totally.
evil out of the world.
Totally.
Why do you think they took a more violent approach to these nonsense accusations?
I mean, it's kind of like, it's like any sort of, I guess, historical example of governance, and I guess today too.
Yeah.
There's no one central authority that's like directly overseeing everything that's going on. So there are people in the middle that get carried away with things, and things are kind of unevenly governed all over the place. And in Innsbruck, you just happen to have a psycho who, got mad at this woman because she spat on him, and like, I mean, I think it's just kind of like, it's almost like he went viral, right?
Yeah.
Like he wrote this book and it just kind of kicked off a phenomenon. So I don't think that it's like indicative of like, like a large and like wholly brutal sort of regime. It's just that there are bad apples.
Yeah.
I mean, the church had its problems, but
Understood.
yeah.
Yeah. Does it contribute to any like cartoonish depictions of witches at all? I know that's more of a silly question, but we certainly have this kind of stereotypical witch that we see in a lot of media, riding a broom, having the pointy hat. Does it mention any of that at all?
I mean, so I don't read Latin.
That's fair.
It's sad. I think I was actually just wondering on my way over here, does anyone study Latin at SDSU? And wouldn't that be cool if we brought that back? But
My high school taught Latin.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. And then the
that's
professor or the teacher retired, and the classes. Yeah, it was really tragic.
it truly is a dying language, even
Yeah.
though it was already a dead language.
Yeah.
I think like the thing that this really calls to mind for me, and I don't know if y'all have seen it because you're younger, but Monty Python's Holy
yes.
Grail, because like there's a whole scene in that where a woman's like ridiculously being tried, and they're trying to eke a confession out of her, and I think it's like very spot on, but in a humorous way.
Yeah, yeah. The throw her in the water, see if she floats.
Yeah.
Because witches are made of wood.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's not far off from what I assume was written in this book.
Yeah.
Just truly out of left field style claims that just have no grounding in real life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's so great about things like Monty Python is that like the satire was, not entirely out of line with like what the reality was. And that's like one thing I love about British humor is like how dry and like how perfect,
Yeah.
how perfectly they capture the ridiculousness of like human nature. But yeah, I mean, spot on in my opinion.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, do you think any of that kind of thinking still persists in this day in a less humorous tone?
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned a little bit at the beginning, because I'm studying American anti-communism, I feel like there's really a historical sort of villainization of the left in the U.S. So that's a big example. But then others too, there's religious persecution. It's interesting. It's like kind of like hive mind mentality. People just really get on board with an idea about something being bad and something that they have to like focus on eradicating, whether or not it's rooted in any sort of reality or not. And it just kicks off movements that like you lose control of.
Yeah, I mean, just a combination of extreme fear and the need to gain back power.
Paranoia. Yeah, definitely.
Definitely, and I probably know that all too well. What do you think are the connections between maybe your work now in anti-communism and the McCarthyism era and witch hunting?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there were people when so during the first Trump administration, you may remember that Trump was like, this is a witch hunt, when I think it was during one of his impeachments. I can't remember. And then there were people that were actual witches that were writing op-eds about how it was offensive to them because they were like, an estimated 200,000 people were killed during the witch trials. This is like nowhere close to what happened then. But the same goes for like during the Cold War. The first Red Scare, started in 1919, and then during the Cold War and the McCarthy era, people were rounded up and deported just for having liberal political views. So there was like the whole Hollywood blacklist thing that happened, where a bunch of directors' lives were essentially ruined because of it. Tons of people were accused of being communists. It was a really dark time, and I think like I'm always reluctant to know whether I want to say something like this on like public forms of media.
Understood.
But after the really tragic Charlie Kirk assassination, I was really struck by the rhetoric that was coming out about how that was caused by radical leftist ideology.
Yeah.
I thought that was really disturbing because to me it kind of signaled a call to people to go after that. And that's really scary, and it came from a person whose like top level influence like really knows no rival. So, I mean, like, look what happened after the Biden inauguration or right before it, January 6th.
January 6th, yeah.
I mean, even if you aren't directly telling people to go out and hunt down other people because of whatever you perceive their ideas or beliefs to be, people are intuiting that from you. And then that's kind of how it happens. So
certainly you're saying that the kind of thinking still persists today, but people still look back at the witch hunts and the trials and say, oh, this is bad. And they have an understanding that this is something that was with no grounding. But of course it still persists and it still reoccurs.
Yeah, and I mean, I hope that it has no grounding, but I also think it's important for everyone, regardless of your political alignment, to understand that there's nothing wrong with being left-wing. And there are left-wing people in the country, and they're not violent, and they're not out there like thinking of ways to wreck the current administration or to commit murders, assassinations, any of that kind of stuff. There are plenty of leftists. There are people that, care about the common good. So I don't like the like, oh no, there's no communists here sort of thing. I think it's more like, let's normalize and destigmatize whatever it is that they're trying to villainize, if that makes sense.
Yeah. As we wrap things up, Jalen, do you have any questions?
Do I have any questions? Not off the top of my head right now. I feel like we kind of went through the motions of like.
We did.
Oh, I do actually. Let's say if watchers are interested in viewing this book, how would they go about doing that?
True.
That is an excellent question. So Special Collections is in the library. We're on the first floor of the Love Library building, which is the older and, in my opinion, far superior one. We're across from the Latinx Center. And there's a QR code on the front door of our reading room so that you can request an appointment on days that we're not open to the public. But there's also information on the library website about our hours and all that kind of stuff. And you don't have to have an appointment if you come in on a Monday or a Thursday. And you also don't have to know what you need to look at ahead of time if you're coming in on those 2 days. But you're welcome to send us an email if there's something you want to see. That includes the Malleus Maleficarum, which is up in our vault, but we'll bring it down if you don't mind waiting for 10 minutes. But yeah, we're here for you, and it's pretty easy to find, in my opinion. It's just, right down the stairwell. So
Of course. One of my best papers that I'm most proud of is by going to the collections office and pulling out some old newspapers.
Oh, wow.
And I always say that's the reason that I got such a good grade, because I did the work. I walked in and I read some real stuff.
I'm so glad to know that's part of your lore.
Exactly. So I will always award the collections office. Is there any information about this very special, very weird, interesting book that we haven't really touched on just yet that you want to get out?
I mean, I don't think so. I guess I could tell you a cool tidbit about its physical appearance, although it feels kind of anticlimactic at this point. But I will just say, I think our copy is cool because it has the remnant of a thing called a hasp, and it's this iron fastener that's on the back of the book, on the bottom edge, and this was used to chain the book to a rack. So these books were stored in monasteries, basically on racks. So, people that were coming in to use them would have to come in and take the huge, heavy book off. It's literally giant chains.
Oh, is it humongous?
Our Malleus is not humongous.
Okay.
But it was on a big rack that had big chains, because that's kind of the early way of making sure that a book didn't walk out of the library. Now we have the tattle tape, so that when you go through the detector, it goes off if you haven't checked out your book. But back then it was just a literal chain. And
I think we should bring that back.
Oh yeah.
That would be
No.
so fun.
Although we have millions of books, so
I
it might
know.
be kind of hard. But yeah, and I believe that's the only book that we have in special collections that has an example of that. So that's just a fun aspect of it that I like to show off.
That's really cool. So it really was religious reading.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was almost like homework.
Yeah, there's even notes inside, in the margins. We call it marginalia. And it's in kind of a Latin church shorthand, so I can't read it. But
annotations?
Yeah, I think it would be a really cool research project for someone to come in and look at that marginalia and see if they can figure out who might have written it based on what it says and what era it was written in. It looks like it was definitely, before the 1900s.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so that's the cool thing about early printed books. Each copy is unique. It's got its own sort of quirks like that.
I do have one last question too.
Ask away.
Who did we buy it from? Who originally had possession of it?
I don't know who originally did. We bought it from a book dealer. I can't remember which book dealer. We have a number of people that we have great relationships with. But book dealers don't like to tell you their sources. So I learned the hard way that you should never ask them.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe someone can investigate it out there. Find the Malleus.
Yes. Yeah.
Take it to yourself to get someone who speaks Latin, figure out translate the annotations, and find out the book's origins.
Yeah. She's in here waiting for you.
Exactly.
Or he, let's say.
Or they.
Or they. Yeah.
How wonderful. Well, I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much.
This has
It
been
was
one
so
of our
informative.
most historic episodes.
Oh my gosh, it was
I
my
love
pleasure.
And yeah, thank you for taking eyes away from your rare collection. I hope everyone checks out your work as well. I'm interested. I'll certainly be tapping in. I always love some really interesting historic research like the type that you're doing, and I hope everyone is a little better prepared for the scary season.
Yeah.
Watch Hocus Pocus, Twitches maybe.
Or
And
watch The Witch. That's my favorite.
great suggestion.
Yeah.
And thank you again.
Yeah. Happy Halloween.
Yay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. A big thank you to Anna for providing us with such interesting information. Now, let's get right into the headlines. For sports, the show is the student section of the San Diego Aztec Games. President McMillan, a third-year student and the current president of the show, found himself in the front row of games a lot during his freshman year. Now, one of his top priorities is tightening up the traditions. Basketball is the centerpiece of the show, but McMillan wants the student section to show up across campus. Both McMillan and Vice President Faith Dunn hope to foster longevity to the culture and community while welcoming in new Aztecs.
Newly unveiled Aztec glyphs usher in a new area of cultural representations. Mexican artist No Silva reimagined 3 symbols from the Aztec sunstone representing education, health, and community. Silva describes working for over a year to complete and inaugurate these symbols, and that was an honor to him. SDSU retired the warrior mascot in 2018 but kept the Aztec name. SDSU said this new iconography is meant to honor Aztec history while maintaining the sense of community that is developed around the identity. The wind, the jaguar, and the house is supposed to represent focus, grit, and pride, a decision that took Silva a lot of historical research and artistic responsibility.
For news, the University Police Department published a report on September 30th detailing their inventory of military equipment. The report, titled Regulated Tools and Equipment Report, listed surveillance drones, chemical agents, 40mm impact munitions, and a command vehicle. Assistant Chief Hank Turner explained the equipment is necessary for crowd control. Quote, let's say if we have a peaceful protest of students, and a group comes on and decides to disrupt that protest or decide that they're going to put a stop to it. End quote, he said. In cases like these, Turner said that UPD would need to use military equipment. UPD will also hold a community engagement meeting on October 24th at 3 p.m. to answer questions about the report.
The AS Financial Affairs Committee votes yes to ARC expansion plan. A $27 million plan would expand SDSU's Aztec Recreation Center with new facilities and programs to meet rising enrollment without increasing student fees. Associated Students Financial Affairs Committee votes yes to move forward with the proposed plan September 29th, and this plan includes additions to the Aquaplex, Arc Express, Performance Center, racquetball courts, and the ENS fields.
Now, in arts and culture, Joaquin Serrato did a rockin' review on the Back in Business tour for rap duo Shoreline Mafia. This reunion had a surprise appearance from Too Short and was their first show back together. They broke up in 2020 when Phoenix Flexen announced his departure. Just this month, they had a celebration of California and West Coast rap culture.
APSA Night Market celebrates AAPI culture through food and performances. The Asian Pacific Student Alliance hosts its 12th annual market in collaboration with SDSU's AAPI student organizations. They had food, live performances, and the market allows for student organizations to help fund themselves. Compiled by 8 student organizations, the event vendored different foods, desserts, drinks from various cultures, and with a whopping 20 performances.
Well, that's all we have for today for the headlines. Do you have any songs or recommendations you want to put out there?
I want to recommend listening to my radio show.
Oh, what's it called?
It's like Daft Punk, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on KCR College Radio.
Shameless plug. I can't believe it. My recommendation is listen to the new Geese album, Getting Killed. Everyone has to. It's the best album ever of the year. At least. Anyway, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.